Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've never made a video about Caitlyn Jenner. I have spoken about her a few times just in passing, like referencing her. When her docuseries, the documentary came out a long time ago, that was actually right when I was transitioning. So she was a very influential celebrity to me when I was first transitioning. So I think for that reason, I've always tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, to be like, she's doing her best to be like, a voice for the trans community. She's doing her best. Like, let's just cut her some slack. But I'm sure that you have all heard about the clip from this week or last week from TMZ, where she was asked about trans kids in sports. Her response was a disappointment, to say the least. So for today's video, we're gonna be watching the clip from TMZ, and I'm also gonna give you guys my opinion on the whole situation, the whole debate. I post new videos here on my channel every Monday and Thursday, so if you guys are not yet subscribed, go ahead and do that right now. I'll wait for you. No nails. I'm still waiting though. Are you done? Thank you very much. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to keep us up to date with me as possible. And also, I have a Patreon, so if you guys like the work that I do here on my channel and you would like to donate, the link for that is down below as well. So before we get started, I do just want to quickly mention that today's video is sponsored by Audible. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but thank you, Audible. But yeah, with no further ado, let's hear what Miss Caitlyn Jenner has to say. Like I said, I've always tried to give Caitlyn Jenner the benefit of the doubt. Of course, her story and her transition is not representative of, the majority of trans people's stories and their situations. But I've always tried to think that, maybe she's doing the best that she can. She did grow up in a different situation. She did grow up with money, but, she did make this docuseries. So, maybe she's doing her best. Whatever. I just kind of gave her the benefit of the doubt, but not anymore. I'm kind of done with it. But yeah, let's get right into this clip from TMZ. It's only about 45 seconds, so thank God.
There's legislation in various states to ban biological boys who are trans from playing girls' sports in school. What's your opinion on that?
This is a question of fairness. That's why I oppose biological boys who are trans competing in girls' sports in school. It just isn't fair. And we have to protect girls' sports in our school.
But if someone transitions and now identifies as a girl, isn't it delegitimizing their identity to prevent
Have a good day.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Girl. So just initially right off the bat, before we get into the main arguments, she walks out with her mask under her nose. Maybe just pull it up. Doesn't really work the best when it's under the nose, but I mean, as we can tell from the rest of the clip, she's not very keen on science, so it's fine. But then to talk to the reporter, when she gets next to the reporter, she takes her mask fully off. What was the point of the mask in the first place? To protect your dog? Shout out to the dog. At least the dog got protected. Anyways, the mask is just an annoyance of mine. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but we're gonna move on. The second thing that I noticed right away was the terminology that's being used. Maybe she's just rephrasing the question back to the reporter in the way that the reporter asked her. But as somebody who claims to be an advocate for the trans community, you should have corrected his terminology, or at the very least, just use proper terminology yourself. Young trans girls are not biological boys. They're girls. You can argue that they're biologically male, if you really, really want to, whatever. But boy is a term that dictates gender, and there's nothing biological about gender. So you're just wrong, sorry. Calling young trans girls boys, or even biological boys, is the way that the right attempts to make it seem like trans girls are just boys playing dress up, or that trans girls are really just boys underneath it all. There is absolutely no reason to refer to trans girls as biological boys who are trans, other than to frame trans girls as boys. Literally no other reason. Not to mention, it's just super cringy and disrespectful, especially coming from somebody like Caitlyn Jenner, who firstly is a trans woman herself, but secondly, at one point was one of the greatest athletes in the world. Someone who these young trans girls that are looking to play sports might have looked up to. Hopefully they don't look up to her anymore, but at one point they might have looked up to her. Would Caitlyn ever refer to herself as a biological man who's trans? I highly doubt that. The only reason that she's doing it now is because she's running for governor of California, and she wants to appeal to those Republican voters who also see trans girls or trans women as boys or men. So yeah, that was my first, what would you say, grievance? My first complaint about, the whole video. But now I want to get into some of the main claims that Caitlyn made. Okay, everyone, before we continue, I want to take a second to talk about today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Audible. Shout out to Audible. Thank you so much. I've worked with Audible in the past, but if you don't know, Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment. At Audible, you can find the largest selection of audiobooks ranging from bestsellers to new releases, to celebrity memoirs, languages, businesses, motivation, as well as original entertainment from top celebrities and tons of binge-worthy podcasts. When you're a member of Audible, you get 1 credit every single month to use on anything in their premium selection. That includes any of their best sellers, something from their new releases, a celebrity memoir, or that book on your bucket list that you have yet to pick up. That's on there too. Once you get those audiobooks, the title is yours forever. You get to keep it in your Audible library for as long as you want. And the best part of these monthly credits is that you don't have to use them right away. So you can actually save them for up to a year. So if you have a busy schedule one month and you need to, cut back on the Audible books, sad, I know, you can jump back in next month or a few months later and, binge all of those things with those saved up credits. And if you don't like the series that you just decided to binge, you can simply swap it out for another one. It's no problem. Also, when you're a member, you get access to their Plus catalog, which is filled with thousands of more audiobooks, more original content, as well as guided fitness and meditation and some sleep tracks so you can get better rest. It also includes ad-free versions of your favorite shows and exclusive series. Literally all of that is included in your membership. You don't have to use any credits for it. You can get as much of it as you want. With an Audible membership, you can actually download these titles as well, so you don't have to be connected to the internet. If you're listening to an audiobook on your tablet, you can actually switch right over to your smartphone and it will keep your place for you, so you don't have to, be like, where was I? What was I listening to? The free app will pick up right where you left off, so no worries. So yeah, visit audible.com/Samantha Lux or text Samantha Lux to 500-500 to start exploring Audible with a free 30-day trial right now. You're welcome. Go ahead, do it. But yeah, thank you so much Audible for sponsoring today's video, and yeah, let's get right back into it. So I broke it down into 2 main claims. The first claim being it is unfair to allow biological boys to compete on girls' sports teams. The second claim that we'll talk about a little bit later is that we need to protect girls' sports. So I've made a video on trans athletes, at least professional level trans athletes before, so I definitely recommend that you go check that video out if you haven't already. But something that I talk about in that video, and something that I think is important that we bring up again, is it really unfair to allow trans girls to play on girls' sports teams? We really shouldn't be surprised because this is actually a trait that a lot of transphobic arguments make, but this whole claim that allowing biological boys or young trans girls to compete on girls' sports teams is unfair is not at all scientifically accurate. Conservatives and the right never really bring up any reasons to why trans girls shouldn't be allowed to play on girls' sports, other than, they have an athletic advantage. They just obviously are going to be better and, beat all the other women. But actually there is currently no evidence that shows that transgender girls have an inherent advantage over cisgender girls. A quote from a study that will be linked down below says, currently there is no direct or consistent research suggesting transgender female individuals, or quote unquote male individuals, have an athletic advantage at any stage of their transition. And therefore, competitive sports policies that place restrictions on transgender people need to be considered and potentially revised. This whole notion that trans girls have an advantage over their cisgender peers comes from the notion or the belief that testosterone gives you an athletic advantage. I'm so sorry if I'm saying this name wrong, but Katrina Karkassis, a senior visiting fellow and expert on testosterone and bioethics at Yale University, explains, studies of testosterone levels in athletes do not show any clear, consistent relationship between testosterone and athletic performance. Sometimes testosterone is associated with better performance, but other studies show weak links or no links, and yet others show testosterone is associated with worse performance. Not only is the science behind this claim not conclusive, but trans women are not even the only women that have higher levels of testosterone. 10% of cisgender women have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which leads to raised levels of testosterone, and we're not banning them from any sports. Also, these bills don't take into consideration the diversity of trans people. What about young trans girls that have undergone pubertal suppression with puberty blockers? Their testosterone levels would be no higher than, a cisgender girl's. But with these bills and these laws in place, they still wouldn't be allowed to compete on the girls' team. So not only are these bills or these laws not supported or backed up by science whatsoever, but that's not even to mention that high school sports are intended to promote inclusion, better teamwork skills, reaching collective goals, all those kind of things, but they're very rarely about destroying the competition or being the absolute best, like is the case in professional sports. And people love to suggest, oh, well, they should just get their own sports division. They should just play against other trans people. Easy peasy. All done. I'm not even gonna get into how problematic separate but equal is and how it's not actually equal and how it can lead to a bunch of disparities. Like, Google it. There's a bunch of stuff out there on separate but equal. Well, I'm not getting into that. But how effective would a school sports team be at, promoting inclusion or teaching inclusion when they're excluding people for no reason other than to make Republican lawmakers happy? Let's be clear, there is no science backing up any of these laws or any of these bills, and 75% of people that vote, 75% of voters actually support allowing transgender youth to play in a team that is comfortable and safe for them. 80% of voters that actually have children also support allowing transgender youth to play on the sports team that aligns with their gender identity. Also, according to the study, 89% of Democrats support it, 79% of independents support it, and 56, more than half of the Republican Party supports allowing transgender youth to play on the team that identifies with their gender identity. As you can clearly see, the vast majority of people support allowing trans kids on these teams, and it's for a good reason. Trans students are not causing any problems. If these young trans girls did have an inherent advantage over their cisgender peers, then we would be seeing trans girls dominate sports all over the place where they're already allowed to play on their sports team of their gender identity. But we're not. We're not seeing that. That's not happening. In California, where Caitlyn Jenner is, where she's running for governor, trans girls have been allowed to participate on the team of their gender identity since 2014, and since then have had no issues. Idaho, a place that just passed a law forbidding trans girls from playing on the sports team of their gender identity, has had no issues recently. No issues like whatsoever. U Sports of Canada has allowed trans girls to play on the sports team of their gender identity since 2018, and guess what? They've had no issues. Even in Olympic sports, we're talking about professional level athletes here. Transgender individuals have been allowed to compete since 2004. And since then, we have yet to see a transgender person even qualify for the Olympics. Trans athletes are by no means dominating sports. They are by no means wiping the competition of cisgender women. It's just not happening. Not to mention that these trans athletes face a whole list of obstacles before even getting to play the sports that most of these cisgender athletes will never have to deal with. Obstacles like heightened rates of depression, heightened rates of anxiety, heightened rates of attempting suicide, heightened rates of homelessness. A main driving cause of these issues is rejection of one's gender identity, which is exactly what these laws are attempting to do. So let's just be honest, let's just call it what it is. These laws are not about protecting women or saving women's sports. They're about attacking trans youth. Yes, not even trans people, trans youth. These bills would not only discourage trans girls from even attempting to play sports, but if they did want to play sports, advisors would be allowed to question their their girlhood, since we're talking about literal high schoolers here. And those trans youth or anybody that doesn't look girly enough, even cisgender people, would be subject to interrogation, to chromosome testing, to gynecological exams, anything that it takes to prove that they are truly female. These people are so focused on young trans girls that they don't see that, well, first of all, how gross this is, but second of all, how impossible this is going to be to enforce. Okay, you make them take a karyotype test. Okay, what if that student has XY chromosomes but has a vagina? Then what? Where do they play then? Or like I said, what about those young trans girls that have started puberty blockers and never went through that male puberty? Do you think it would be fair to put them on the boys' team? I'm getting ahead of myself though. They don't really care about trans people playing sports. They're like, well, sucks to suck, don't be trans then. So moving on to Caitlyn's next claim that girls' sports need to be protected, assumingly from trans girls or biological boys who are trans. Caitlyn obviously did not even look into this issue at all. She did not look at any of the science. She's just like, what are the Republicans saying? Okay, got it. Okay, got it. Literally in her own state, trans girls have been allowed to play on the team matching their gender identity since 2014 with no issues, like I've already said. Like these trans girls, these young transgender girls are not a threat to cisgender girls in high school. Like they do not need to be protected from young trans girls. If anybody needs to be protected in sports, it's those trans people. Trans people represent less than 1% of the NCAA's student athletes. 68% of cisgender students are involved in sports, while only 10 to 15% of transgender students are. Don't get me wrong, female athletes do go through a lot and they do need to be protected, but not from transgender women. They need to be protected from unequal pay. They need to be protected from less media coverage. They need to be protected from the body shaming. They need to be protected from the constant disrespect they experience. Why doesn't the right focus on these issues? Why doesn't the right focus on the issues that women are actually saying that they need help with? Like I've said in videos before, honestly, I do not think the right actually cares about women's sports. I think they're just using this whole thing as a guise to hate on trans people, trans children. My goodness, I just need a breath. It would just be such an easy resolve if people would just do the research, just look at the science behind everything. People are just too distracted by hating trans people. Anyways, everyone, what do you guys think about the situation? What do you think about the interview that Caitlyn Jenner was in? The interview. I say like it was like a formal interview, like the little paparazzi moment. Leave a comment down below with your opinions. I would love to know what you all think. If you did like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up down below. It really helps out my channel a lot. Subscribe if you are not already and you would like to be. Thank you so much, Audible, for sponsoring this video. And yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to go. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in Thursday's video. Bye, everyone.